Hey, everybody. Great to see all of you out there. Well, I have a feeling that we have a legendary one in store for you guys today. And why do I feel that way? Well, because the last time we had these guys on, it was probably one of the best shows we've ever did. Certainly, the feedback from that show was amazing. People were saying it was some of the most haunting true crime stuff they've ever seen. Just watching all of our faces slowly go from smiling to haunted after we hear about the yellow Volkswagen of Patrick O'Shaughnessy. And so we figured, well, we're here today to conclude this series on Patrick O'Shaughnessy. We're going to hear the third and final tape today, and of course, it wouldn't be a show without the following guests, right? So I just want to say before I introduce everybody to the audience, I want to say thank you, everybody out there, for watching. Really appreciate it. We got a really good one for you today. So we're just going to get right into it. Well, you all know him and you all love him. I'm not going to do the crazy stuff today, guys. For some reason, I'm just not feeling it today. The loud and the boisterous intros. These guys are just too much gravitas for me. I can't do it. So we're going to bring in them one by one. The famous Jim Fay.
Greetings all. All right.
And of course, we have the great John Rinciari.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
So John's having a little issue again with the audio today. Everyone out there, we're just going to have to deal. It is what it is. John, thank you so much for joining us. Well, we're not done. In fact, we are only 50% done, guys. The second to newest addition to the team here, we got the great, the one, the only, Gary Hanley. Gary, thank you so much for joining us once again. Great to see you.
My pleasure.
And last, but certainly not least, a man who needs no introduction to the great true crime audience. A distinguished gentleman who has graced our airwaves several times before, and who has been an invaluable help to this investigation, well, ever since we met him. The great, the one, the only, Bob Maitre. Welcome to the panel, Bob.
Hey, Bob, thank you very much.
So it's awesome to see all you guys. Now, before we continue, I just want to get a little sense here. Now, I know that Bob and Rince, you guys were partners, correct?
For 6 years.
Yep.
Right, and Bob, you were in the Emerald Isle when Rince got smacked in the face by an anti-Semitic brawler, right?
A big lumberjack, yeah.
Yeah, who thought that John was Jewish for some reason. He was not only was he a lumberjack, he was dumb, because how anyone could think that John Rinciari is a Jewish man is beyond me. But that's another story for another day.
Well,
and of course, Bob, you have been on our airwaves a couple times, most notably with the great Mike Lorenzo. We did we did a walkthrough with on Wicker Street, and that was an amazing experience for me personally, because, well, I was walking around with two law enforcement legends in Yonkers, and then we ended up in quite unexpectedly in Maria Neto's house, where you guys were able to talk to her and get her story. So that was a great video, and we were really happy to produce that. But one of the things that the audience might not know about you, Bob, and we just want to just, to backfill for the audience and to give them a little bit of, because they know Faye, they know Rince, they sort of know Gary already. But you actually have the distinction of not only working for YPD, but you also worked for the Brooklyn DA's office, correct?
Right. Yes, that's correct.
Now, did you work there during the Son of Sam era, or what era was this?
It was still the Son of Sam era. I started my job in September 1978. And I believe he took a plea deal in June of 78. So all that thing in that crazy courtroom fiasco, it was over by the time I got in there.
Right. Okay. So did you ever hear any rumblings from the Brooklyn DA about any weird stuff, anything that we should know about?
Well, right away when they knew I was from Yonkers, I mean, I didn't look like I was from Brooklyn. I didn't sound like I was from Brooklyn. And Eric Lopez, investigator, he was breaking me in, and he saw I was from Yonkers. And he was the investigator, him and his partner assigned solely to investigating for the prosecution. They had their own office, kept it under lock and key, and it was their baby. And he didn't say much, but he said enough. They really couldn't. I think they were all sworn to secrecy.
Uh-huh.
But he says they wanted this thing gone. It was an election year, I believe, for Eugene Gold, and they just wanted this conviction and him to go away, it seemed.
Who was the DA when you were there, remember?
Eugene Gold.
Was Gold. Okay.
Yep, was Gold. He was there, since the early 70s.
Right.
Then he got jammed up a little bit later on, but
yeah,
I think he got jammed up for molesting a 10-year-old girl. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Down in Tennessee. He was at a convention.
He was at a convention. Yep. That's actually in the Ultimate Evil. One of the very few things in the Ultimate Evil that's actually factual. So listen. So they didn't tell you anything. They didn't say to you, "Hey, we really know that this was actually a cult of Satanists, but we're just going after Bert." Like anything?
No. They just said they felt that he was the shooter. They believed he was a lone shooter, but they wanted this thing put to bed. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe because of evidence problems or whatever. They didn't say, but they were just glad it was gone, put behind them. But
right.
Nobody really ever spoke any further of it. It was maybe, I don't know, taboo. I don't know.
I think that had a lot to do with it. Political taboo.
Yes.
Or, as we're finding out, maybe there really was nothing else to talk about once Berkowitz was put in jail.
I agree. That's what their theory was, but it's still politically tenuous for them,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way that the media had blown up this case, I can totally see how everybody wanted it to just go away and the city to get back to normal again. Boy, wouldn't it be great if New York City could get back to normal again now? But that's another topic for another day. So real quick, so today we're going to be talking, of course, about Patrick O Shaughnessy, and we're going to be doing the third tape in the trio. There are 3 Patrick O Shaughnessy Queens DA tapes. I just want to let the audience know that the third DA tape runs 43 minutes, but there's actually only 28 minutes of audio on there. So what I've done is, as usual, I've put the tape through a filter to take out the low-end noise and the high-end rumble and all that kind of hiss and stuff like that. And I also have edited for time. I took out all the silence at the end. So the tape is only going to be 28 minutes as opposed to 43. Real quick, though, before we get into this, I showed these guys these pictures before the show. And I wanted to show them on the show as well. These are pictures. So when I first did the show with Jim and I believe it was John Comparetto who originally we did a show months ago on Patrick O Shaughnessy, and I had reached out to Josh Zeman. And I said to Josh, do you have any pictures of O'Shaughnessy? Did Maury have any pictures of O'Shaughnessy? And that kind of stuff. Was there any pictures in Maury's files that were of O'Shaughnessy? And Zeman not only said yes to me, he actually shared them with me and allowed me to put them on the air. So I actually showed these pictures, and I'm going to show you guys now. I actually showed these pictures to Jim Fay and John Comparetto months ago. And they both told me that this was, in fact, not Patrick O Shaughnessy. But I wanted to just get Gary's opinion. And just for the record, Bob Maitre did not, you didn't know Patrick O Shaughnessy directly, correct?
No, not at all. No.
Okay. So that's good to know. And it's also, so obviously you can't speak to this, but it's great to have you here regardless, because you know the institution of YPD. So I'm sure you can add some valuable stuff. Okay. But to the guys who are here, who knew O'Shaughnessy, once again, was this, so Gary, mainly you, because Jim and John already answered this. Is this O'Shaughnessy?
No, it's not. It's really, really close, but that's not Pat.
That's not Pat. Okay. So now, and then this final picture here, is this Pat?
No.
Okay. So, and then just so everyone knows, Patrick O'Shaughnessy was considered a suspect by Maury Terry, not by law enforcement, but by Maury Terry to be a perpetrator of the Edmond Dante shooting. Edmond Dante was a toll booth collector on the Hutchinson River Parkway, and he was shot randomly with a .22 caliber rifle late at night one evening by someone who was never caught. And this was the sketch given. And of course, in Maury's notes, he has Patrick O Shaughnessy as this guy. But this is instructive because this is Maury's notes right here. These came out of Maury's files. This was shared to me by Josh Zeman, who gave me full permission to use these. Maury didn't even have the right guy in his freaking files, guys. He had the wrong person in his files. So, it just goes to show, like...
Rince, do you remember that shooting? If you can acknowledge it, I don't remember that shooting.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add on that, Rince?
No, in the news when it happened, and it was a big news story at the time. I had no idea that there were any suspects that they were working on, or they had going forward on that. I thought that was a cold case.
Right, and I think it is still a cold case, actually.
Yeah.
But apparently, Maury thought that it was Patrick O Shaughnessy who was the perp, and so that's why he had those pictures in his files. But so that's an interesting little aside. But not, of course, what we're here to do. What we're here to do today is discuss and listen to the Patrick O Shaughnessy audio tape. And just real quick, I want to get this I want to just make it, there we go, so we can see all of us pretty much while we're listening to the tape. So before we start the tape, guys, is there anything that anyone wants to add before we begin?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. All right. That's a very law enforcement sounding answer, Jim. You sound very official when you said that.
10-4.
And of course, Jim and I are in discussions now to bring you guys a new series and called Forensic Fridays, and hopefully we'll be working on that soon. So, all right, so let's just get to it. Again, I have edited out the silence at the end, and I've put this through a voice filter, so it took out the low end rumble and the high end hiss. But otherwise, this is exactly as you will hear it on the audio tapes in Queens, DA. All right, so everybody out there, I'm going to start it. If it's too loud or too soft, please let me know. Let's just get started.
So in other words, you're telling me that you left the PD because of pressure on the job, correct? Excuse me? In other words, you're telling me that you left the PD because of pressure. In other words, you felt like they were pushing you out.
No.
Or wanted you to go out.
Nothing.
Well, see, it's confusing because basically what you're telling me, they tell me I've been up there. Okay, I've been through your file. I have been through the Yonkers PD. I've spoken to members of the force. They tell me that, and it was common knowledge from everybody I spoke to. When I mentioned Patrick O Shaughnessy, they tell me that Patrick O.
Just stop there for some reason.
Now that's that you were called back into service. Okay. Now, with me, with just about 5 minutes of looking over your orders, I realized that you were not called back into service, but that you were listed in the service.
That's right.
Okay. And at that point in time, I checked into the Yonkers PD as far as how do they leave you? In other words, were you out on military leave or whatever? Okay. And they tell me that a leave of absence is only a year, that they could not give you a 3-year leave of absence.
Well, I have a letter saying that I was granted a military leave of absence.
For how much time?
Excuse me?
For how much time?
4 years.
4 years.
Which is up to the legal limit.
Okay, now this is something that again came up last time, but since they're bringing it up now, I kind of want to just sort of explore this a little bit. So, real quick, so what they're saying is that O'Shaughnessy, the people on the force thought that O'Shaughnessy was called back. So Gary, did you hear any, and Rince, because you were working with him at the time, what did you hear? What was the rumors going around that he was called back?
That was a story he put out.
And Gary?
He was called back.
Yeah, same thing. That's the story that Pat put out. I'm looking at the face there. That's the story that Pat put out, that he got called back in. I think Pat though is a little confused on this 1 year, 3 year, 4 year deal here. In that the job probably gave him a 1 year leave of absence,
Right.
and Pat's depending on a law that says he gets 4 years for military leave. Well, I don't think Yonkers was going to give him a 4 year military leave. If he wanted to come back after 4 years, he was going to have to sue them.
Interesting. Okay. Now I know, Jim, you have some thoughts on this as well.
Well, the 1 year thing, that's under civil service law in the New York State. I had to go through the same thing when I went to the DA's office in the Bronx. Uh, but as a civilian employee going to the DA's office, I had 4 years to come back. I had every year, as many years as I had on the job, up until 4 years to come back to the original job, which was fire dispatcher. I came back right at the 4 year mark. But uniform personnel only have 1 year leave of absence. Now, Pat is saying that he's referring to a federal law, which I never researched, but I have an inkling in my mind that it exists, that because of the all volunteer army, they wanted people to join, and they didn't want the local jurisdictions interfering with it, and they didn't want they told them under federal law they can take a leave of absence for 4 years for military time. I have not researched it. It's a plausible thing as far as I'm concerned, but without documentation, I don't know too much about that.
Right. But there is a discrepancy apparently that the Queens DA found between what Pat was saying to people, which we have now verified with people who were actually there, first person oral testimony, versus what was in his files. So I find that somewhat interesting because it shows that, well, Pat might have been lying, right? Which
Well,
isn't.
he could have told anybody whatever he wanted, but apparently there's documentation that shows that he at least got that 1 year leave of absence.
Right. All right. So let's carry it on.
After that, and of course, referring back to the old headstone, it says that he was a
Vietnam veteran.
Vietnam veteran. I don't know how that works into that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a little suspect to me too. All right, let's carry it on.
I understand it to be that the law states that you can get a leave of absence for up to 1 year.
Right.
Except that the military employment rights, I don't know the exact name of the law it would be found in, but that goes up to 4 years, a maximum of 4 years of active duty. And it's that I applied for, and I understand I was granted.
Right. Well, I can tell you from my checking that they told me that a leave of absence for a year was fine. With all you'd have to do is when you came back was to pass the physical. Anytime after a year, you'd have to go back and both take a physical and a written exam. And if you pass both, then they would consider you as back into the force, so you'd pick up where you left off. But other than that, that's basically what they told me. But there was a problem there, and I'll tell you the problem was that they told us that you were called back into service to serve 1 year, okay, and that they had granted you a 1 year leave of absence, and that I find in your personal file. Okay, there was no other. I also found your orders there, and I see where you signed up for a 3 or 4 year hitch. I don't remember.
Okay, hold on, I'll explain it. I've got a hard copy saying that I requested and was granted a 3 year leave of absence. This was later modified when I found out that the school that I wanted, I wanted to get some advanced schooling while I was in the service in the technical field, and they told me that I'd have to go for a 4 year enlistment period, and that is the maximum that's allowed. Now, it might not be allowed in the Yonkers Civil Service law, a 4 year leave of absence. However, it isn't allowed in the federal law, and that was recently, well, by recently, I mean, I believe it was 74, 75, modified to include local jurisdictions.
Right.
In that police departments were no longer allowed to prevent anyone or to hurt.
Jim, I just saw you make a face.
Well, I forget what I made the face about. I was thinking something.
Local jurisdiction.
Yeah. when I have access to the New York City Fire Department orders, and routinely you see guys being granted of leave of absence with pay, without pay for military leave, and some of them are gone for 3 years. I don't think his explanation. I think it's a plausible explanation. I mean, as I say, my firsthand experience leaving the fire department to go to the DA's office and the leave of absence and the paper trail that's left with that, plus what he says about the federal law, which I know nothing about, would grant him 4 years. So
Right.
I have no doubt about what he's saying. The question of whether he said he got called back, that's inconsequential, really.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, ultimately, it means nothing towards the Son of Sam case. So
Yeah.
it's really kind of a moot point in a sense. Any
Yeah.
other thoughts? But anyone else before I carry on the tape?
I just think he was giving the department a phony. He got called back in, and everybody knew that it was fake at the time. It wasn't even that he fooled anybody. Anyone he spoke to said they don't come back looking for you if you get out in a hardship. But he made that they contacted him because asked him if he still had that hardship, and they said, well, then you owe us time, and you're going back into the Marine Corps.
Yeah, that's what he may have been told everybody, but the fact is, even this guy, the investigator, says, I got in your folder the re-enlistment papers. He signed up. Whatever
what
he
I'm
told
saying,
anybody is
right.
He signed up, but he tried. He made
whatever the reason.
his cover story when he left that he was getting what, and that story even got as far as the Queens DA. That story from Yonkers. He told everybody that, but everybody at the time knew that was really that didn't happen. That he went and probably enlisted, and then we found out that to be.
Now, the thing that's confusing me is the timeline here. I always thought that he jumped ship from Yonkers as soon as the Queens DA came calling. But here he is in the Marine Corps in California when Queens DA came calling. So there's a disconnect there for me. Like,
Well, it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, you Yonkers guys, but wasn't it talked about anyway that he was contacted, or the Yonkers cops were contacted to get in touch with him in regards to the Son of Sam immediately at the time that he signed up or whatever happened to him in the Marines? Wasn't it the story was the Queens DA was looking to interview him, and at the same time that he went to the Marines?
Yeah, it was very, very close in timeline.
Yeah. So,
right.
like we like to say, there's no coincidences, but it could have
And
been.
that's why, to me, it was all kind of suspicious to me.
Well, that's
I got called back. I got to leave.
All right. Well, suppose let's just say, for an argument's sake, that he was a key part of this whole Son of Sam thing. What would stop the Queen's DA's office to contact the military, say, we want to talk to this guy, if under subpoena if necessary?
Right. Nothing. You can't hide.
You can't,
or run.
I'll say this about, as I said last time about Pat. Until I heard him talking from the Marine base, I had my doubts whether he was even in the Marine Corps.
I mean, you didn't believe the headstone?
No, I did not believe the headstone.
That's incredibly interesting.
So my thought over all these years with Pat was just in the wind. He's gone, and Lord knows where.
Well, in a previous episode, I had mentioned that, well, first of all, that I knew O'Shaughnessy way before the auxiliaries, when he was in a drum corps in the Bronx. And he was a bit of a foul ball then. But two friends of ours, actually, John Camporetta being one of them, and another friend of mine, who for a short time was also in the 5-2 rescue, got an email from O'Shaughnessy from California. Well, John Munger got it from California. And, Camporetta also said he was from California. So he wasn't so much in the wind. It's just that nobody back east knew where he was, He was making himself known. And as I said in my original video, Why would he, if he was trying to keep himself undercover, why put himself in the public arena of Facebook and emails and everything like
Right.
that, you know?
Right. I mean, good point. But then again, nobody even knew his name a couple of years ago until our video series, and we
Right.
exposed this guy for the first time.
Well, a few of us knew him, but in different
Yeah, but
contexts.
right, but not in terms of this. But
No.
yeah, until last week, our last show together, the last one we did on O Shaughnessy, I have been going on this whole Berkowitz acted alone thing because that's where the evidence is lying. But I gotta say, two things have changed my mind slightly. Our last show that we did together, especially when Gary said that this guy had a yellow Volkswagen, and then Judy Placido's tape from the Queen's DA, because they ask her, they say, "Do you know a Patrick O Shaughnessy?" And she pauses, and it's a very pregnant pause, and she says, "Why are you asking about him?" And then they don't follow up. To me, that would be an immediate follow-up if I was a questioner, but they don't follow up. But it sounded like there was something there. So my only holdout in this whole thing with Son of Sam is, to me, and this is just me personally, I'm not trying to tell you guys what to think or anything or influence anyone out there, but I still think mainly Berkowitz. But if anybody else was involved, it would have to have been O'Shaughnessy at this point. But yet I don't see how those two ever meet, really, because even though they have mutual friends, I don't ever see the connect between O'Shaughnessy and Berkowitz happening.
I don't think we have, Vince. I think we're back. We don't see any connection between the Co-op City crowd and O'Shaughnessy at any point.
Right, exactly. Because you all met in the 52nd.
Yeah,
right.
And the 4-5, as I remember, that 4-5 rescue truck, that was like nobody paid attention to them. I mean, those guys came over from the 4-5 rescue to the 5-2, but that was as far as it went. We had nothing. We didn't work with them or drill with them or anything like that. We just they were there, we were here.
So Maury kind of just did what he did in the book by conflating things, as he's known to do, right? The auxiliary units. He even said that you all belong to the same auxiliary unit, which wasn't true.
Wow.
So this is good stuff. All right, let's carry on. Tape.
Harass anyone from joining a military component, National Guard, Reserve program, or whatever.
Right.
And that's what I based my leaving the job on. The fact that federal law said that I could take a 4-year military leave of absence.
Okay. What's your next duty station?
I believe it's going to be Albany, Georgia.
Okay. When is that?
It's Advanced Electronics School.
And when exactly are you leaving for that to report there?
Well, I was supposed to leave next week, but since I've been on the phone the whole afternoon, I can't get my orders, and I can't reserve
What a passive-aggressive little dig there, huh? Actually, it's not even passive.
Right.
He's basically saying, you guys are keeping me from
making a move.
Yeah.
Invitation for my household goods. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get out of here now.
Yeah.
I won't be able to start the paperwork now until Monday.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, Pat, is there anything we should know? In other words, look, let me put it this way. We asked you these questions. We didn't mean to come down on you in any way. We've got a series of questions. There was a lot of questions we didn't ask you. And basically, is there anything that we should know in regards to the Carr family or David Berkowitz or Howard Weiss that we haven't brought out? I mean, in other words, your side.
Yeah, guys, I shot Stacy Moskowitz. Yeah. I shot this person. I mean, what are they? That's kind of the dumbest question I've ever heard.
I don't know what he was attempting to get out of him with that. It was. He should just ask the direct question, got it over with. Right,
and he even said that we have a lot of questions that we never asked you. I mean, ask them. This is crazy. All right. Anyway.
Well, I never made any connection, and between Howard Weiss and David Berkowitz. I had no reason to think really that there was any kind of a friendly relationship between them. I mean, apparently that's what you're telling me, is that they were friends.
Well, let's put it this way. When he was arrested, when David was arrested,
yes,
there had to be a lot of talk in regards to the Son of Sam.
Yes.
Okay. Again, like you mentioned before, he was well sought. He was being sought by everybody. Okay, that is the son of Sam. When David Berkowitz was arrested and confessed, I'm sure it raised a lot of eyebrows. Okay, now I'm sure it raised eyebrows with Howard Weiss. Howard Weiss knew David Berkowitz. Okay, just about.
Is that established fact?
What, that Howie knew Berkowitz?
Yeah,
Howie,
he knew who he
But I don't
was.
yeah, Howie was in the borough command for the auxiliary emergency services, which there was only two, the 4-5 and the 5-2. So he had to, at least he saw his name on paper anyway.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make that. I just wanted to establish that.
Howie was aware of. Howie was aware that Berkowitz tried to transfer in, and at that time, people knew. Asked that the transfer be denied.
So everybody, just
because he had a reputation of being a little bit odd.
Right. I'm just gonna, for the audience's sake, just in case they didn't get that, Howie did not want he didn't recommend Berkowitz for the 5-2.
He was told by other people Berkowitz
was
better
odd.
than he did, that it wouldn't be to transfer him into 5-2, and his transfer was denied.
Yeah, the original guys that went from the 4-5 for the 5-2, when Berkowitz's transfer came up, they said, he's a foul ball. And then they went to the mayor of the city of Yonkers and complained about him, who was a detective in the 5-2 precinct who handled the auxiliaries at the time. Thanks, yeah. So, and then, they put well, be that as it may, that's what happened, yeah.
Well, that's interesting, though, that they put the kibosh on Berkowitz joining the 5-2 because of his personality, because it shows that he was already showing these signs of going off the deep end early, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, okay, all right. So wait, was this before the Army or was this after the Army?
It was before the Army. Oh, wait a minute. There was a piece of paperwork there that said that Berkowitz put him again for a leave of absence from the auxiliaries to go into the military. So, but there was a very interesting comment in that thing. The above has not received an auxiliary badge. So he must have had just joined the 4-5, and I guess when he got so despondent for not being transferred for the 5-2, he joined the Army. I'm just saying,
Oh, wow. Okay, so
there is a document, an NYPD document from the CO of Auxiliary Services in Queens to somebody else, from somebody else saying Dave Berkowitz has requested a leave of absence from the Auxiliary Services for military purposes, and then another one-line thing, he has not received an auxiliary badge. So it must have been the very, very, very early days of his auxiliary days.
Right, and then he was essentially shunned by the other auxiliary, and then he ends up in the Army. I can see that being a plausible, scenario for him entering the Army.
Well, if I was in the 4-5 auxiliary rescue, I'd want out of it. But desperation.
But it also bespeaks to the fact that he was going nuts before the Army, not even during the Army, like we surmised, but that these traits were being seen by you guys before the Army.
Well, I didn't know him before the Army, so we have to.
I thought that he was met him, and it was quite a bit before even the auxiliaries.
And you thought he was. Your sound is cutting in and out, John. Unfortunately, repeat that again. You thought he was.
I felt that he was when I first met him.
He was off. Okay.
That was long before
the auxiliaries. Okay. Sorry. John,
that was with the Snedeker thing, right? With 48 engine. Oh, okay. Right. I'm sorry. Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, guys, John's mic this is just the way it is. We don't have any choice in the matter. You all know that I would prefer that his mic worked perfectly, but we just have to deal with what we have to deal with here. Okay.
Maybe we'll work on it after the session, see what's going on.
Yeah. We did work on it before, but something happened anyway. So let's carry it on.
That were friends with David. Now these are the people that were involved in the auxiliary.
Hold on.
Now I I'm sure it raised eyebrows with Howard Weiss. Howard Weiss knew David Berkowitz. Okay. Just about the same people that you know were friends with David. Now, these are the people that were involved in the auxiliary. They were involved in the rescue. They're people that have since that point have gone on to either being police officers or detective investigators or investigators in other Westchester and other places.
Right.
Okay. Now, these people had to get together. They had to discuss David Berkowitz as far as knowing him, seeing him at fires, seeing him at different locations. And I can't. In other words, what you're telling me is that you never heard of him.
Well, I had never heard of him until he was arrested.
Right. Okay. Now, afterwards, what did you hear in regards to his friends and your friends being the same people?
Just that, he had been known by different people. They knew of him. No one told me they knew him, very well or personally or anything.
Sounds like he's lying through his teeth here to me. Any opinions?
I don't. I didn't know Berkowitz, and Rince only knew him casually, and O'Shaughnessy was either out in more left field with that crowd. I mean,
Okay, all right.
More plausible.
I don't think he knew him.
You don't think?
Yeah, at this
You don't think he knew him? All right, so I jumped the gun on that one.
He was kind of, strange at times.
When you say he, meaning David?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is what you're hearing from your friends.
Yes.
So, in other words, your friends has related.
Any time that, we got a whole bunch of guys together and sat down and talked about it.
So you'd sit down and talk about David and sort of Sam thing.
I mean, there was never any time.
Oh, there was never a time.
No, that we all got together and talked about it.
Right. Well, I'm sure. Look, you and Howard being close friends, and
Real quick, John, were you one of those? And make your answer simple because your mic is breaking up. And also, and I hate to say this, but speak a little slower because be very deliberate about that because that'll help also. Were you the guy who told Pat that Berkowitz was off and strange? Because where else would he have gotten that information?
Well, he might have been there when Hank Spallone, who was the coordinator, came to us and asked us about him. And guys in that room at Berkowitz is a little bit off his mind. So that's where he could have heard that. But
okay, because because it clearly sounds here as if he had heard that Berkowitz was off, and since you were one of the people who thought that, I just wondered if that came directly from you to him. All right, let's carry it on.
we have it.
Conversation that myself and a few other guys had with detective and asked us about Berkowitz
With Spallone.
We didn't.
Okay.
Think he should cut.
All right.
I thought it was, he thought it was kind of ridiculous that the department was, so busy and involved checking out my schedule, at work in relation to the killings.
Right.
And he stuck by me then, and he gave me a great deal of support, as did several of my other friends. And the impression I got from most of the people on the job when they heard it was that, they thought it was hilarious.
Right. Well, let's put it this way. I'm trying to clear something up too.
Right.
I'm talking to you. I'm not. At this point, you're not a target or anything like that. Okay. I want you
Not
to
a target.
The
Not a
main
target.
thing is there some?
That's very important legal terminology, right?
It really
That's
is.
not some- yeah, that's not some. And I want to get Bob in here because I feel bad. Bob's sitting there all alone and neglected.
Don't feel bad.
When someone says you're a
Learning
target,
experience.
you're a target or not a target, Bob. What's the significance of that?
Well, the minute they say you're a target or not a target, I mean, it's a funny line. I mean, oh, okay, you're not a suspect, but talk to me anyway.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he's carrying the conversation cross country with things to do. He's not under subpoena. He don't have to talk to this guy right away.
Right.
He could say, "Why don't you come out here? Or next time I come to New York, we'll sit down face to face." I'm very surprised, and I never knew Shaughnessy, but he sounds like a choir boy.
Well, we won't go that far. But
Just his vernacular, the way he speaks, I expected on a guy with a tough, rough voice and maybe a wise guy.
Well, that's what's so.
He was a wise guy, but not in the organized crime sense.
Well,
Yeah,
you know, that's it's actually really interesting that you say that, Bob, because that was my first impression when these Queens DA tapes came out. We started hearing people like Wheat Carr and all these people out in North Dakota, and now Pat O Shaughnessy. I told the audience that one of the significant things that this brought to the Son of Sam case was humanizing these people and letting us hear them instead of forming an opinion by reading Maury's words.
Yeah.
And it looks like you kind of, were struck by the same thing. It's like when you hear these people, it does change your opinion a little bit.
Sure does. It does. I mean, I have a different outlook on Wheat Carr. Just the way she sounded, and you try to surmise what kind of person she is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just for Bob, I just wanted to say for Bob, I think later on in this tape or one of the previous tapes, the detective here interviewing him, O'Shaughnessy, says, "Will you be coming back to New York anytime soon?" And he says, "No, I got to go to Albany, Georgia, and all this stuff." And then he asks him, "All these records that you have about the military and the auxiliaries, so where are they? Are they with you in California or are they in New York?" He said, "Well, I got them in California." It's my summation that if they had been in New York, the paperwork with his mother, as he had explained, he used to live with his mother, that they would have hit his house with a search warrant to get those.
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And they also invite him, if you come back to New York, stop up at the office. Here we are.
Yes,
yeah. Come on. Yeah, right.
All right. Let's get that. Let's carry on.
Something that we've overlooked, something we've missed. You being a police officer for 5 years and the auxiliary much longer, or a part-time prior to that, a time prior to that, you know exactly what I'm getting at. Okay, David Berkowitz. Okay, he just didn't come out of the woodwork.
Right.
Okay, he knew people. He was friends with people prior to him being captured, and after him being captured, people had to know David Berkowitz.
Yes.
Okay. He lived as David Berkowitz prior. Then he became the Son of Sam, and when he was arrested as David Berkowitz.
Yes.
Okay. People had to know David Berkowitz.
Right.
Okay. He knew the same people you did. This is the reason why, and I'm repeating it. I know you've heard it many times tonight, but there's got to be some type of link that that either you're not telling us about or we're overlooking somewhere. Now, how could it possibly be that if I was friends with the same people that knew David Berkowitz, and me possibly not knowing David Berkowitz, but his name would have to come up, there had to be discussions either by Howard Weiss or any of those other people we mentioned.
Well, never. There were discussions, but never anything in any depth or,
Did you know Lenny helped move him into his apartment in Yonkers?
I had no idea they were that close.
Okay, in Yonkers.
What?
This guy, he must have been watching too many Dragnet shows.
That's what I'm thinking. This is terrible.
He expects O'Shaughnessy to say, "You got me. I don't the mercy of the court." He said what he's going to say. Him embellishing his argument, the detective, isn't going to make things better. Probably make it worse.
And also, it's rather presumptuous because it's possible that he didn't ever speak about Berkowitz because, as you guys are saying, the connections were not direct. They were tangential. All right. Wow.
Isn't that odd that Lenny knows that you're on the job in Yonkers, and David, a friend of Lenny's, is moving into Yonkers, and that you didn't know about it? He never mentioned it to you? Or vice versa? In other words, you're buffs. Prior to this, you were very much involved. Okay?
Yeah, but not all together.
Right.
Very rarely ever with Lenny.
Right.
With Howie, yes.
Lenny and Howie are very close friends. They were close friends.
I didn't know they were all that close.
I don't think they were.
Right. So he's giving actually what seems like truthful answers here. And Gary, any opinion on this?
I think he's given truthful answers on it myself.
Yeah, it sounds like what little I know from having heard your guys' stories, it sounds like he's actually being truthful here.
You know, I just want to bring out a personal point. You know, they talk about Howie Weiss, and this guy's trying to make it sound like that, you know, Weiss was he was riding around in a yellow Volkswagen with Berkowitz shooting people.
Right, exactly.
But
well,
when,
sorry, go ahead.
When this thing broke and Berkowitz was locked up, Howie was just the same as the rest of us. Hey, oh man, you know, he didn't bail out, he didn't run away, he didn't try to change the subject when we were talking about it. You know, it was he was saying everything that everybody else was saying, you know.
Right, and subsequently, of course, we have found out that the passage in the Ultimate Evil about them being at a wedding together was completely false.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so John Catalano made a good comment here, which I think we should keep in mind when listening to all these interviews, that Queens DA was 100% on board with the conspiracy. They were biased and looking for any connection. I actually think that that's true, but modified. I think they might have started out that way, but I think towards the end they were giving Maury the stink eye.
I think what I said in one of my previous interviews was the Queens DA told his people, let's take what this Maury Terry has and find out what we got, or let's take this information this Maury Terry has and shut him up.
Yeah, I think the latter was probably true.
Yeah, you know, true. You know, the way he's handling it, it's very unusual.
All right, let's carry it on.
I knew they knew each other, and I believe that Lenny went on with the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children after a while. But I didn't know that they were all that close.
So basically, in other words, you're saying to me that you never knew of David Berkowitz prior to his arrest?
Not that I know of, no.
You never saw him? You never worked together? You never saw him at fires? You never had any type of relationship, social or otherwise, with David Berkowitz?
No, not at all.
Okay. You never saw him at any of the...
If I ever saw him anywhere, I didn't know it. You know, I didn't know he was David Berkowitz.
And you never saw him at any social function whatsoever?
I don't believe so.
They're getting to that wedding. That's what they're talking about.
He was at an awards ceremony or something, and, you know, he was just a face in the crowd. I have no idea.
And you didn't know that he lived at 35 Pine Street?
No, not until the arrest.
Did you know Craig Glassman?
Glassman. Craig Glassman. The name is familiar, but I think it's from the paper that it's familiar. Is he the deputy sheriff from Westchester County?
Right.
Yeah. No, that's the only way I know him.
Right. You never heard of him or saw him prior to the arrest?
I know of, no.
Did you know, you didn't know that he lived at 35 Pine Street?
Glassman?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Pine Street.
How about that, guys? Any thoughts on O'Shaughnessy Glassman connection?
I doubt it very much.
O'Shaughnessy never worked in that area.
In that sector.
That was in the east side as a cop.
He says somewhere on another tape, he says, if I went up there, I'd have a hard time trying to find Pine Street.
He says that coming up. Don't let the cat out of the bag. Now, Gary, did you know Craig Glassman?
No.
Bob?
No.
You didn't know Glassman. Okay. Were there any stories going on out about Glassman after this? Anybody trying to connect him to this? Anybody thinking he was involved? Or was there anything about Glassman that we should know about?
He, too, wrote a book.
Yeah.
Oh, that book's an abortion. It's horrible. He didn't even write it. It was written by a ghostwriter, some other Charles Walford. We should do a show one day where we just make fun of that book. But nothing, you guys never heard anything through the years about Glassman? Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. All right, let's carry it on.
Was in the North Command.
Right.
And the only time I really ever would go up to the North Command is if there was a major fire and I was assigned there, or if there was a small riot or something going on and they would send us up as backup units. I even tell you, I really could probably go up there and not even find Pine Street.
Right.
You know, I had never been to his house. I understand there was a police sergeant after the investigation, or after the arrest, that hadn't got up there and was selling some souvenirs or something.
This guy rats out the cops. What's up with this guy?
Again, that's just hearsay.
That wasn't
Let me
hearsay.
ask you a question. Why was it that you left your guns with Howard Weiss?
Well,
I mean, were you just close friends and you just left them with him? You didn't want to part with him, and you felt like if you ever came back, you could get them from him, or what? I mean,
well, what I was planning to do is have them transferred once I got to a permanent duty station. Both of the models, I understand, are not in production, and weren't supposed to be in production much longer. And I figured that they, you know, from what they had gone up in value, I figured they'd be good investments to hang on to.
Did you remember what you paid for them?
I'm sure I have the paperwork home.
Do you remember where you purchased them?
I remember where.
Where?
Leslie Edelman's.
On the island? What location?
Oh, wait a second, hold it, no. One of them was purchased, I think the 45 was purchased at Edelman's. The Smith & Wesson, they couldn't get for me. I got that from, I think it was Midland or Upland Sporting Goods. They've since gone out of business. They were on McLean Avenue.
That Edelman's, is that located on the island?
They've got several locations.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking. Which location did you purchase?
It was somewhere out in Long Island.
Yeah, okay.
I'd have the address on the paperwork.
Yeah, right.
And I had been offered money for them, you know, from people that knew I was leaving the department. And nobody was even talking about realistic prices. And I figured it would be better to just hang on to them until I got to a permanent duty station, and then apply for a license if required, and then have them transferred. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons I was trying to get back in touch with Howard is that I found out that I could have them shipped out to California.
Is all this plausible with the guns and keeping the guns with Howie? I mean,
Well, he says there's a paper trail, so you know, the detective all he has to do is look for the paper trail, especially if the guns were transferred in. He mentions one gun place on the White Plains Road. It was Olinville Arms. You remember that place, John? Olinville Arms.
Yeah.
I bought my first. I think you were with me. I bought my first gun there. Yeah. Very expensive, extremely expensive.
what kind of gun was it?
38 Smith & Wesson.
Nice.
2-inch.
Oh, you know, those are actually beautiful little guns.
Well, when you as a machine, you got to look at it that way. You know, a man-made machine that works very well.
Right, exactly. And they do have some style. All right. Anybody want to add anything before we continue? Okay.
We got somebody playing with a bell over here. Let me ask you a question. The guns, in other words, you didn't sell those guns to Howard. He was just holding them for you. Excuse me?
I transferred them to him.
I see. And was this done with just a receipt?
It was done at, I'm trying to think of a sporting goods store on White Plains Road. I think it's, if the gun shop in Yonkers was Midland, then this is, I think, Upland Arms. And if, you know, the names might be reversed. But it was done through there, in that I had to transfer them to the gun shop, pay the federal transfer fee, and then so many days later, 18 days or whatever later, 3 weeks, Howard could go and pick them up and have them signed to him.
Let me ask you a question. Was Howard a religious person?
He wasn't overly religious. He had, you know, religious beliefs in the Hebrew faith. I mean, you know, I sent him like a Hanukkah card, and that.
He sent Howie a Hanukkah card.
I don't know definitely that he.
Wait a second. I got to comment on that. I have never gotten a Hanukkah card in my life. I've never sent a Hanukkah card in my life. Now, I'm only half Jewish.
I'm going to send you one.
You better put a 20 in it.
Yeah, definitely.
Send them a half a card, Gary.
He says Howie had religious. I never remember ever seeing Howie wearing a yarmulke except at a funeral. And he took it off and put it in his glove compartment. So, and I had, I grew up in the Bronx. I had several yarmulkes in my glove compartment just in case,
Right, of course.
Howie wasn't religious.
I sent him a Hanukkah card.
Oh, it was a good card.
It was good.
Close to it, as far as I know. Anyway, from just from watching me.
So in other words, he practiced his religion in that respect.
I believe he did. I can't say for sure, not being Jewish. I mean, we just never ended up in shul together. As I say, Ed Rutowski was very close to Howard. And I know Ed is pretty religious about keeping the Sabbath and that. Ed would probably, be a better source as far as Howard's religious beliefs.
Let me ask you a question now. I tell you, really, is there anything we should know that in regards to this case? In regards to these people that I mentioned?
I'm trying to think of.
How about Carr? Tell me about Lee Carr again. You didn't know Michael or John Carr?
No, Michael or John, no.
And you said you didn't really know Sam too well.
I don't think I ever. I mean, I might have seen him once when he was bringing something to her, bringing her dinner or just what it was. But I don't really recall meeting. As far as her brothers, if it was the $500,000 question, how many brothers does she have? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, she never talked about them much, huh?
Well, we weren't in the habit of having long conversations. When I did talk to her, it was while she was at work and while I was at work. And then again, it was only along the times that, my partner was favored for bringing food up to the radio room.
Okay, now, Bob, you just laughed.
Well, I know what's coming. I mean,
oh, okay.
The partner.
Right. Now, real quick, does this sound plausible that what he's saying here, is this ringing true?
Well, there was friendships. There were friendships with the radio room. They would have certain cops that would go out and pick up the food, and if they didn't come down and open the door, they lowered the basket out the window.
Oh wow! Okay, so but would cops from the east sector, like where he was, go to the radio room often?
I don't think so. I think it was, if anybody, it'd be West Side cops, the 3rd or 4th precinct.
Right, because that's where the radio room was, right? Near City Hall?
Yeah.
Well,
it was in the 4th precinct. Okay, precinct.
I asked Rince that question in one of our other episodes, and he gave a good answer. It depended on where the dispatchers wanted their food from. Mm-hmm. So they wanted it from a place down below. They call them. If they want it from the other place, they call them.
Wow. Okay. So the dispatch used the cops as their own private Uber. So delivery service, Grubhub.
Yeah, they were South Command though. That was the 3rd precinct.
Right. Okay. All right. I just wanted. All right. So let's carry on.
At that time, on the midnight shift, 12 shift, there were very, very few places open that you would want to eat in the 4th precinct.
Right.
So that could also account for why they had an East Side car picking up.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So it's
good.
So sense. It's right. Okay. So this is these little details are where we put together stories, in my opinion, and where we can start to piece things together and make sense of things. So it wouldn't be so. okay, that just made sense to me that's why O'Shaughnessy could have been in that room when he didn't work in that sector. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they would call up and send the radio car out to the diner to bring stuff back. And, you know, this is what my partner did for, I'd say about 60% of our tour. Just bring coffee, donuts, hot dogs, hamburgers, and whatnot.
Right.
You know, and
Real quick, who was his partner? Or is that somebody you don't want to identify?
He names him. Go ahead, Vince.
He names him, yeah.
Yeah, Mayo. I think he passed, right? Right. Bob?
Yeah, Jimmy DeMayo's. Yeah, he's gone a long time. He had a nickname.
Jimmy
Jimmy
the
Junk.
Junk.
Jimmy Junk.
Jimmy Junk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why was that his nickname?
Well, picked up stuff on the street.
He used to collect
Cans.
junk while he was working.
Aluminum, anything.
No kidding. What, to sell it to scrap yards or for his own personal
Yeah.
hoard?
Yeah.
Sell it.
Oh wow, this is cool stuff. I'm loving the backstories
He was
here.
a good guy. Yeah, he was a good guy, but
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Did
was a
he
hustler.
ever? Did you ever speak to Jimmy Junk about Patrick O'Shaughnessy? Anyone?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Let's carry it on.
to some place or another. And that's really about the only time. I'd say the majority of the times I came in contact with car, Jimmy DeMayo was with me. He was my partner for most of the time.
Right. Now, I tell you, right, like you're saying, there might be a hold up before you're going to your next duty station. Are you going to be on leave prior to that or after that? Or?
Well, I had hoped to get up to New York sometime over the Christmas holiday.
All right, let me tell you what I'd like for you to do.
Well,
Yeah,
what
stop by.
the problem is now is that, see, I'm shipping my stuff. I'm getting a U-Haul.
Right.
And if I can't get the orders in by today, they can't guarantee me that they'll have a truck for me by next week.
Yeah.
So it's your fault, guys. You're the ones
That's
who
right.
screwed me up. You got.
You know, next week being the 14th when I'm officially detached.
Right.
So if I have to wait an additional week,
Right. You can't. Is that open tomorrow?
excuse me?
That open tomorrow? Or you're?
Yes, sir, he only works a 5-day work week.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I love it, absolutely. No,
5-day work week, huh?
excuse me?
That's all right.
Oh, hey, you ought to try it sometime.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing is that since getting away from the police department, I've had a lot less indigestion. I sleep better. I even found boot camp comfortable.
Yeah.
And you know,
Sounds,
in comparison,
sounds like an advertisement for Motrin.
Yeah. So wow, he's throwing Yonkers PD under the bus here.
Well,
Yeah.
It's not everybody's piece of cake. Even if you could be a gung ho buff and you get so enthralled in the whole thing, and then when you get hit reality, you say, "Why did I get involved in this for?"
Right.
Yeah, he brought most of his own problems on himself.
Sure, I'm sure he did.
Right. That's why I find Mike Lorenzo's story particularly interesting, because he didn't even really want to become a cop. He just, I mean, that's a whole other story, but I find him endlessly fascinating. All right, let's carry it on.
the pressure of the job. And if I would ever even apply to go back, I couldn't tell you at this point.
Right.
It would depend on, about 3 to 6 months before my end of active service.
Right.
What kind of an offer Marine Corps made me to reenlist. The field I'm going into is a bonus field where there's a good monetary bonus for enlistment as well as rank.
Right.
And I would really have to weigh it. I mean, a lot of people said, you're crazy to go back in the Marine Corps. They're going to pay you peanuts, and it was a matter of aggravation. Just a lot less aggravation.
That was one of the first questions I had wanted to ask you.
Excuse me?
It was one of the first questions I had wanted to ask you is why you went back in. Basically, well, you had your reasons and whatever. But let me ask you this: if you plan on coming back to New York for a visit, if you
He just says you had your reasons and whatever. I mean, these guys sound like they're like checked out already on this O'Shaughnessy. Like they don't even want to be there anymore talking to him.
Well, there could be some truth to that. Maybe at this point he may feel he's just going through the motions to satisfy life or whatever his name was.
Right. And also don't forget, this is the third of 3 tapes. They've already
Right.
been talking for well over an hour.
Yeah.
All right.
Again, I ask of you, if you feel like it, if you have the time, and if you're interested in finding out some facts, either about Howard Weiss or whatever like that, we'll invite you over to talk to us.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Let me just take down some information.
Right.
Would you be able to tell me how that investigation is going with about Howard?
Yeah, probably. Not at this time. It's fairly a confidential investigation at this point. It's being handled by.
Has there been any arrests yet?
No.
Would you say it's probable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Let me give you our phone number.
Sure.
It's 520
Yes.
2098 or 2099.
Okay.
And the area code is 212, as you well know.
I remember the good old days when the Bronx was 212 and when Queens was 212. It was like a big revolution when we up in the Bronx changed to 718. It felt dirty almost because we associated 718 with anyway.
The Hinterland.
And then of course when 845 came in, that was the end. I mean, all right.
And like I said, I'll give you our address too. It's 125.
Excuse me?
125
Yes.
-01
Right.
Queens Boulevard.
Oh, yeah. That's right up by Kew Gardens.
It's exactly. It's a Kew Gardens. It's right next to the House of Detention.
Okay, you know the old Kew Gardens General Hospital?
Excuse me?
The old Kew Gardens General Hospital?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was right up the street.
I see. Well, like I said, if you come down, you either ask to speak to ADA Herb Lifer or myself. And
Could you spell the name?
yeah, George Bird, B-Y-R-D. That's my name. Okay. Bird, B-Y-R-D. That's my name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your partner's name?
And the other individual is Herb Lifer.
L-I-F-E-R?
Right, and we're in room.
Just a little aside on Herb Lifer. He's still alive, guys, and we called him, and he hung up on us twice. But we did get his answering machine. It's actually quite interesting. It says, "You have the speak after the beep. You have the right to remain silent, and anything you can say can be used against you." This guy's like a DA to the end, right?
He still thinks it's on the level.
Yeah, he's in his 90s, this guy. We did speak to Armienti, though. Armienti was actually quite nice. We're trying to follow up with him on an interview. We're working on it.
278.
278.
Okay.
Are you going to be working like the week after Christmas or so?
Yeah, we'll be here. Okay. And again, listen, you're gonna go home. I know, look, you've been pressured by the.
My home phone number. I mean, it'll be good for the next week. Should anything else come up?
Go ahead, shoot.
That's 714.
714.
The area code.
Okay.
And it's 367.
Right.
1491.
Okay. And you'll be there for the next week or so.
Yeah, like I say, it's only going to be good for about another week or so. Until I finally get my orders and get packed up and moved out. But should anything come up, please give me a call.
Yeah, call's correct. And there's no problem. Basically, we were trying to put a lot of pieces together, and it wouldn't be complete without talking to you. So I don't want you to get the idea that, at least you know where we're coming from. There's a lot of people we have to talk to yet that we haven't, and like I said, I'm sure, I'm almost, I'm very, very surprised that you knowing the amount of people that these other people knew, David, as the subject, is incredible, So
I'm pretty surprised myself, to be honest with you. I hadn't realized exactly how many people, were involved and knew him.
Right.
Until, like I say, the reporter had asked me about a couple of people, and now yourself. And I knew that some people knew.
Just real quick, on this kind of note, what he's saying here, and this is just my personal observation. I just find it incredibly interesting that, like, all of Berkowitz's friends became cops or firemen or law enforcement. I mean, this is unbelievable. I mean, this guy Berkowitz, like, what the hell? Where did he go wrong? I mean, we could figure that out for the rest of our lives, but it's just I never heard of another serial killer whose friends all grew up to be law enforcement, and and then this guy ended up being a serial killer. It's just very unusual.
What's your implication there, Manny?
There's no implication at all. Zero is just an observation.
Well, you got to remember something. That was my generation, and Rince's too, and Gary's. Our generation was a follow-up to the generation after World War II, where everybody took a civil service test.
Right.
We all, and that's what we gravitated to. Not all of us, but a vast majority of us.
Right. Right. Especially, more, I guess you guys would have been considered what, like middle class, lower middle class, working class kids growing up?
Yeah, I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it's just very interesting that this guy Berkowitz was just in this whole milieu of law enforcement. And of course, we now know that that's probably where he picked up a lot of his tips and tricks to help him and aid him in his committing his spree. All right, let's take this out and let's finish up.
Knew him back there in the police somewhere, but that, as I understood it, most of the people that knew him were involved with the regular patrol force.
Okay, Pat, I don't have anything other to add to this, so like I said, if you think of anything, you get back to us.
I sure will.
Okay, and if you come up, I'd appreciate talking to you.
The other thing is that, every night, we normally went out 1 or 2 nights a week with the rescue unit.
Right.
And we had like a unit diary, which normally Ed Rakowski kept. He was the captain immediately in charge of the unit. And like I say, he's a close friend of Howie. He might be able to, to peg down maybe possibly why we knew the same people, and yet we never met. Maybe there's some possibility there. For the life of me, I really can't figure out why we didn't. Knowing, as you say, the number of people. My contact with most of the people mentioned, outside of Howie, was very limited.
Yeah.
It's like he wants to keep this conversation going.
Yeah, Gary, I was going to say, they were already ready to say goodbye, and then he's like, yeah, let's keep this going. What does that say anything to you as a professional law enforcement?
Nervous.
Yeah, there's got to be a certain degree of nervousness there. Like I said once before, O'Shaughnessy is a cop, and he's talking to a district attorney's office,
Right.
You got to be on your guard no matter, so...
Right. Yeah.
And I go back to Pat's always been a great storyteller.
Uh-huh. So let's finish this and then we'll get your final thoughts. But I just want to write this down. Essentially, like, do you think he's telling the truth? Well, let's just finish this up and then we'll talk the whole thing.
After I left, it was generally known that I had gone on the job. I was one of the first from our particular unit to actually take a police job somewhere.
Right.
And as I say, I was known in that respect. The only other thing I can think of is asking David himself. I don't know what he'd have to say about it.
Uh-huh.
But
that's actually a very fair point.
Mm-hmm.
Just go ask David.
Maybe he's heard of me. I really don't know. But as far as I know, I was never with him, at any function or anything.
Right.
I have some pictures that were taken in a wood ceremony somewhere. I'll go through them and see if I can spot the face. I mean, I know what he looks like now.
Yeah, do that. If you go through any of the pictures and you see even a group picture of you and Howard and some of the other people from the rescue.
There were a lot of group pictures in the basement, which was our headquarters of the 52nd Precinct.
Right.
And I believe Howie had quite a few pictures of guys in the unit.
Real quick, I know I wanted to let this go, but there's only another minute left of the tape. Now, this begs the question to Jim and to John, and maybe to Gary too. Any of these pictures exist to this day these group pictures of the auxiliary units in the basement that he's speaking about?
I don't know, but the only picture I sent you there with the
Was
three of
that
them.
other one, right? Yeah, so because I'd be very interested in seeing these pictures for sure. Who else was in there? Not that it means anything now. In the old days, everything was a conspiracy to me, but now, I've grown up and matured a lot on this case, and these things don't really mean as much to me as they used to. But still, something about O'Shaughnessy. All right, let's finish this up, and then we'll get our final thoughts.
We can find out for you, Manny.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Group photos in there. They really told the story of the union, how it progressed, how equipment had changed, members changed. Things like
Even for just a show, right? We could just talk about the auxiliary units and have these pictures. It'd be great.
And I've only got about 3, maybe 4 snapshots, and they were basically at one of the award ceremony where I received an award. And it basically just showed me going up to get the award, but maybe there's other faces there.
Okay, Pat. I think we've just about covered it. But if when you come up here, if you would bring those pictures with you, it would be great.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, Pat. If you hear of anything or think of anything, give us a call.
All right, I will.
Okay. Right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
And that was the last time they ever heard from Pat O Shaughnessy.
It was, yeah.
All right. Well, listen, 3 tapes, well over an hour. I was willing and totally, and probably still am, to basically exonerate this guy, let him off the hook, if it was not for that conversation with Gary Hanley a week or so before Moskowitz and the yellow Volkswagen. Those are the only, and now I'm not saying that that's bringing him in this for me personally, but I'm just saying that those are 2 things that I still find they're little asterisks on the story for me as a Son of Sam researcher. So basically, I just kind of want to go through the panel. Let's start with Jim, and then Gary, and then Bob, and then John. Just your overall thoughts on the tapes and what we as Son of Sam researchers should glean and take away from this experience of listening to Pat O Shaughnessy. Because remember, everyone out there, Maury Terry named Pat O Shaughnessy as a cult member involved with David Berkowitz in the commission of these crimes. And that's, of course, what we're dealing with here. So, Jim, take it again, your takeaway from the tapes and what we can glean from these as researchers.
Well, valid researchers would have to listen to this tape and say, as the old TV commercial said, "Where's the beef?" I mean, we can point to things. Oh, he said it this, and he said it this way, and he did, but there's obviously no proof. To get back to Gary's input to this thing with those 2 phone calls, that sort of put me right before the Moskowitz shooting. That put a bee in my bonnet,
Right. Right.
However, just as a side note, does anybody know when O'Shaughnessy got married? Does anybody have any recollection of that?
Had to be about 78.
And when was the Moskowitz shooting?
77.
77.
Oh.
In fact, we're coming up on the anniversary of it.
That's right.
2 days.
But so many things that O'Shaughnessy brings out. There's a paper trail for it. The leave of absence, his enlistment, the gun transfers, and they don't have too much to hang their hat on here, as far as O'Shaughnessy goes, anyway.
I am feeling that. I personally, and I'll just address each one of you guys as you speak to what you said. I agree with you 100%. There's nothing in these tapes that give me any reason to suspect O'Shaughnessy. The only thing that makes me suspect O'Shaughnessy is the testimony of Gary Hanley. So, Gary, on that note, what do you think overall about these tapes, and what can a Son of Sam researcher glean from them, and what should any serious Son of Sam researcher take away from this?
Well, if I didn't know Pat personally, I would say I don't think this guy's got anything to do with this. Pat comes across very, very believable, sincere, and offering information.
Right.
And if there's nothing in these tapes that shows any type of implication whatsoever to me.
Right, but your own personal belief, knowing the guy and having had those experiences, what is happening in your brain right now?
I'm still have a notion that he was involved. It's been it's been a part of my head for a long time that Pat was involved in this, and I think it's going to take more than this interview to change my opinion on it.
Right. Well, that's an excellent insight, and I'm kind of with you because again, your thoughts on this have influenced me greatly. Eric, I see you in the waiting room. Just give us a minute. I want to just go through the panel, and then we'll get you on the screen. Okay. So, Bob, I know you didn't know O'Shaughnessy directly, but you were part of YPD, a legendary member of the force, and you certainly have some opinions. So we'd love to hear, like, what do you think of these tapes, and what should any serious Son of Sam researcher glean from them?
Well, I agree with Gary. You'd have to show me a lot more. He sounded believable to me. Like I said, he sounded surprisingly the type of voice he had. That means nothing, but he didn't sound like the demon he was made out to be. When I heard of Pat O Shaughnessy, you hear about this crazy kind of guy. And
right.
This surprised me. And you have to show me a lot more. And he was very, very good on the phone. He stayed on the phone. Being an ex-cop, again, maybe I wouldn't have stayed on the phone as long.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'll see you some other time. And all due respect, be respectful about it. But listen, I'm in the hallway wherever he was talking. I mean, he didn't have his own personal phone, and he stayed on the line with the guy.
Right.
So I'll give him kudos for that.
Cool.
They even had to cut him off and said, "Let me call you back. I got to." Remember when they said he's tying up a phone line? You have to change phones.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
He wasn't trying to bow out of it at any time either.
Exactly. Now, and then finally, John, and please, John, please speak a little slower just to compensate for the fact that your mic is having intermittent issues here. Okay. Basically, same question. Takeaway and what any serious Son of Sam researcher and who can glean from these tapes.
Well, I think the conclusion to any conclusion, and we just keep trying to because one thing can change the whole course of this so just keep open minds to what we're doing for now, and just keep trying toward the truth.
Right. So
that truth is.
Right, whatever the truth is. Right, John, I'm sorry. Your mic is just cutting in and out so much. It's just very hard to understand. We got to get John set up for another show just so we can hear stories, because this is not fair that the legend John was not able to be heard fully, because you have a lot to add to this. I mean, geez.
We'll work on it later, maybe. After we get
we got to work on this. So we'll have a follow up at some point. All right. Well, I just want to put out to the audience, you have an opportunity now to speak to these guys directly, to ask these guys who were not directly involved, but who knew Pat O Shaughnessy, who were around during this time period. Gary Hanley, he was in Berkowitz's apartment, for crying out loud. He was hanging out in the car house, guarding the car house, for crying out loud. If there's ever an opportunity to speak to some people in Son of Sam, it's now. So I put in the chat the link to the room, and we do have, of course, our perennial and much loved caller in. That's what we'll call him today. The one, the only, Eric Galati. How you doing, Eric?
I'm fine. You guys always do great. The way your minds work, you're objective. I've got a question, because there's a missing link here, and it has to do with the inquiry in these tapes of Maury Terry. Because it's not as if he's a news reporter writing in the Daily News or the New York Post. But I want to go back. Jim, Bob, Gary, John, this may sound naive. With the three prosecuting attorneys, Eugene Gold, Mario Merola, and John Joseph Santucci have read the interrogation of Berkowitz that the police made August 11th?
Are you asking, did they?
Would they normally have read it?
Would they have?
Sure.
Yeah, they would have had that. Okay. The thing is that I want to jump ahead. This investigation is strange. Why would Terry present so much evidence to them? When you listen to Lifa interrogating him, they should actually be interrogating Terry more thoroughly as to where he gets all this information, where he gets these facts, the links, not to give up sources, but to say, hey, what goes on here? Where did you get this? Why are you getting where are you getting these names from? Who, you don't have to tell us your source, but why?
Right.
Not that they just picked from the wind and said, yeah, they're guilty, they're involved.
Yeah, because as we're seeing, he didn't even have the right picture of O'Shaughnessy in his files, let alone tell us where he found out that this guy was involved. And we know that he already had bum information that they were all going to a wedding together, O'Shaughnessy, Weiss, and the third Berkowitz.
Yeah,
so
I find that strange.
So do you have any questions, Eric?
Yeah, one question, the four of you. Do you really believe that John Joseph Santucci opened this up, possibly for political reasons, and or he bought into what Terry brought to them?
All right, let's do one at a time. Jim?
I'll repeat what I said before. He either opened it up to see what Terry had or to shut him up. There's no third way.
Right.
Either somebody presents you with information on a crime, you investigate it, and you do what you have to do with it. And apparently, Santucci came to a lot of the same conclusions we did after reviewing some of the evidence that we saw.
It certainly didn't go anywhere. So, Gary,
Right.
Bob, and Gary, any opinions on Santucci?
I think he got handed a ton of stuff by Maury, and he was obligated to follow up on it.
I believe that's correct.
Right.
And primarily because Terry had a press card.
Right. Bob, any opinions on this?
Maybe. And Santucci seemed like a pretty sharp guy. But I think there could have been problems with Eugene Gold. He held a prosecution from Brooklyn. And he didn't do a good job, Eugene Gold. He led the charge. He's a figurehead. He's a politician. He's not a trial attorney. And they had to sit him down. This is what little I know being down there. They had to sit him down and say, wait, we'll let your upper echelons handle this case.
Well, Eugene Gold intervened and had the first, insisted that the first competency trial be thrown out because of Berkowitz being knowledgeable that it wasn't a complete mens rea. He knew what he was doing, but he didn't want the Berkowitz to be considered a psychotic.
Right. Let's deal with just the question at hand, because I want to get to another caller, Eric, respectfully. So, John, again, slowly, please, just your opinion on Santucci and Eric's question.
I think that PAs have a political motivation. I think Santucci was feeling some pressure coming from Maitre to proceed with this investigation, and I also the political interference of a beam, the mayor, caused all this.
That's a very good point. Yeah,
He did a great disservice. This investigation could have been put to rest back then, but we're hearing about it because there was interference done on the political side. I think a big disservice was done by them, but at least kind of threw the shit against the wall and said, let's see if this sticks. And I give him credit for that, especially in that politically he was working in that wanted this whole thing dropped.
Right, exactly. And they did go out to
with it.
Right, and they did go out to North Dakota. They crossed their I's and dotted their T's, it seemed.
I'll
I got
just
that reversed.
this. I trust Santucci. I don't trust Marola because my friend Jimmy Donovan's uncle was Raymond Donovan, whom he tried to frame, Mario Marola. And Eugene Gold, I just discovered, was arrested for pedophilia in Tennessee. Anyway,
I just wanted to add something that Rince just said about Abe Beam. You got to remember that Eugene Gold and Abe Beam came from the same Democrat Party headquarters in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And so when Beam told Gold to get rid of this, Gold stood up and saluted.
Beam was wrong. That case could have almost been thrown out.
Well, there should have been more investigation, but I don't think, based on what we've seen so far, they would not have come up with much more than what they had already.
I want to get the Miranda statements.
The Miranda statements?
Yeah, the Miranda Act when they arrested Berkowitz.
Well,
would that be documented?
Well, you're supposed to sign. Oh, we used to sign a card.
Oh, you have to sign something, right?
Well, so what are you saying, that he wasn't read Miranda?
No, I just want to make sure because I'm just suspicious about how everything took place. Well, I mean, Beam enters, looks at him, the story goes, and then he comes out and says guilty. That could throw a case out.
Well, it's a spontaneous utterance. It supersedes Miranda.
Right.
What do you mean, the spontaneous utterance that Berkowitz said he was son of Sam?
Did he? Well, Eric's saying that he said something about saying, what, he make an outburst saying guilty or something like that?
No, Abe Beam.
Abe Beam.
Oh, Abe Beam, yeah. Well, there is some truth to that because didn't Charlie Manson made an issue out of Nixon saying that Manson was guilty before he went to trial, and they tried to make that into a mistrial.
But this is the very same day when, during the whole day, a long time, August 11th, when they were interrogating him, they took him from the holding cell from Yonkers to Kings County. On August 11th, the same time.
Anyway, guys, this is going a little far afield. You all know me; I like to keep it on topic. So maybe we'll do this another day, and we definitely have to analyze the Maury Terry tape on the Queens DA because that is a very, very rich vein for us as researchers. All right, so Eric, thank you so much. All right.
Again.
Oh, you called Lifer again? We got to get you got to record his answering machine.
I did. You want it? I'll send it now.
Send him a certified letter. See what it does.
Yeah, we'll put that up on Twitter. All right, Eric, we're gonna take off. Thanks a lot, Eric. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, my friend. Okay, he just took off, and then we had another person in here, Golden Showers, and I'm not quite sure. Let's see what's up with Golden Showers. I'm not even sure if this is a friend or a foe, but Golden Showers is not ready. So Golden Showers, you lost your chance. All right, guys. Well, listen, this was a very interesting tape. I want to say thank you to each one of you guys for spending, an hour and a half of your time, your precious time with us today. Oh, wait, we have Golden Showers back. Let's see what's up with Golden Shower. Golden. Oh, Golden left. Look like Cliff Burton from Metallica. Anyway, all right. Well, listen. So I just want to give you guys the last word here. We're gonna. All right. Let's give Golden Showers a chance. He keeps on coming back in. So what's up, Golden Showers? You there? Golden.
Experiencing technical difficulties.
Yeah. Golden. Sorry, my friend. All right. We tried. So, all right. Before I take it out with the audience. Sorry, I'm just losing track here. I just want to give you guys an opportunity to say any last words before we end for the evening.
Well, I think we made some good points about O'Shaughnessy. Where that lays now is up to each individual.
Right.
And I think Howie Weiss's involvement, contrary to Maury Terry, has devolved down to nothing of any significance.
Right.
And you know, it is what it is at this point. The weak car was not running around with Berkowitz going on dates like some people were trying to impress us with.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of contradictions going around. Maury Terry was instituted most of them. He put them on the record, and everybody believed them.
That's true, and we're unraveling this guy's
Right.
mess. I mean, it's
Having an open
unbelievable.
mind and doing the research proves that point.
Exactly. Gary, any final words for the audience?
No, learning more and more about it. Maury connected some of the wrong dots in his picture, and instead of a conspiracy, he got a kangaroo or something when he connected all the dots.
True. So, Bob, any last words for the audience?
They're just glad to be here. And Maury Terry dropped the ball. He's a North Yonkers guy. He had everything. He had everything right at his hands, and he could have.
He could have done what I did.
He could.
Yeah, that's right.
He could have done. He could have got the truth, but no, he went another way.
Just a quick note on that Maury Terry. When you watch that thing that they did on whatever channel that was about the Son of Sam shootings, the first thing they do is they interview somebody from the newspaper, and he said, "We didn't want to go with any of this stuff. We had no interest in it. We told them, no, go away. We don't want it." Wow. But eventually they had to put it back in circulation again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And John, make it very short and slow and sweet, unfortunately. And you know that I don't like having to make you do that, but it's just the technical issues.
It was great being on the show with my three good friends there and yourself. So I wish you all a good evening. And I'm going to get back to my steak and Guinness pie.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you, John. That really, we're very honored to have you. All right, guys. So I'm going to take each one of you off screen. Thank you so much. Please stick around though, just briefly, so I can say goodbye to you off the air, and we will say goodbye. Whoops. Hold on one second. Bye, John. We will say goodbye to you guys out there. Well, this, just since I asked the question of the panel, I want to just answer it for myself about what we can glean from these tapes and what we as serious Son of Sam researchers should be thinking about them. Now, you know that I don't like telling you guys what to think. Okay. So I'm just telling you guys what I think, and you can take it or leave it. But my opinion reflects what these professional law enforcement officers have to say, that there's nothing in these tapes that proves anything about O'Shaughnessy's involvement with Berkowitz. In fact, it shows quite the opposite. He's being helpful. Is he being fully truthful? Well, we'll never know. There's some controversy there. But he's certainly being helpful. He's certainly allowing them to pursue a paper trail that they can fact check on him. So my overall take on this personally is O'Shaughnessy from the tapes, there's nothing there. But Gary Hanley and that one story from the previous show about the yellow Volkswagen and getting that call, I have been pulled back in slightly. And if there's anybody who I can think of who might have been potentially involved in this, and I can't see where it is. I can't make the connection in my head. But if there's anybody who there's still to look at, in my opinion, it's Patrick O'Shaughnessy. And I hate to say it, but we need to explore more about Judy Placido, because when she was asked about Dapolito and O'Shaughnessy in her tape, she gave a very suspicious pause and said, "Why are you asking about him?" Which makes me very, very suspicious as an investigator and researcher. I'm not a policeman. I don't have the training, but I have intuition, and that's all I can go on. So this concludes the Patrick O'Shaughnessy tapes, and in reality, he was really the last realistic holdout as being a member of any group that could have been involved with Berkowitz, mainly because of the connections that he potentially had with Berkowitz, the being in the same milieu. Although we have not proved that they actually knew each other. In fact, he says that they didn't. And of course, his police skills and knowledge, knowing about dragnets and all that kind of stuff that police would have a inherent knowledge of, that he might have used to help Berkowitz commit crimes. But again, having said that, I still am in the camp that Berkowitz, well, acted alone and that Maitre colossally hoaxed us. So take it as you will. And of course, you all will take it as you will. And that's what I hope. And of course, we will debate this as the weeks and months go on. Until then, my friend, oh wait, I forgot to tell you guys, tomorrow night, Tracy and Noel Dupay. So we've been going balls to the wall, and tomorrow's our last show of the week. And then we got a lot of upcoming stuff for you. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. All right. Well, listen, thanks everybody out there. You guys are the best audience in the world. Thank you so much. And we will see you tomorrow night on Pop-Up Tuesday. Take care, guys.